And now, Lifestyles Unlimited presents the Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Over the next hour, we unfold your map to financial freedom. You'll learn how to retire through investing in single family and multifamily real estate. You'll learn how to create cash flow and build wealth so you can have the time and money to live the lifestyle you want.
Welcome to the show. My name is Al Gordon, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. And on today's show, I have to give a big shout out to the Houston Texans. I actually have to give a congratulations to the entire team and their coach, Lovie Smith. They actually pulled off a win last weekend. I was amazed. I really was amazed. And I'm not trying to pick on the Houston Texans. I'm really not. I think they're a decent football team this year. I think they're a team that was suffering from a lot of inefficiencies. I mean, if you look at what the Houston Texans did last year, they were like kind of they're pretty much a failure. There's no other way to describe it. Not a very good team. They had a huge quarterback controversy. They wound up getting rid of the quarterback and didn't know if the quarterback was coming back. Well, now they've got a new guy in the pocket, if you will, and he seems to be doing pretty decent. And the team that they've built around this quarterback looks like they want to win. They look like they want to win. As a matter of fact, I think that they were in the other 4 games. Well, okay, obviously they were in the games because they showed up to play, right? But what I mean by in the game is I think that the last 4 games, they could have actually won any one of those, let alone all 4 of them. I think the games were that close. They were within their grasp. So if you're a Houston Texan fan, congratulations on your first win of the season. And if Lovie Smith is really turning this team around, then holy smokes, you guys may be in the playoffs. Who knows? You might win the division. It's possible you could play in the Super Bowl and, wow, win the Super Bowl. Wouldn't that be amazing after starting 0-3-1? Now they're 1-3-1. So I don't think it's over for the Houston Texans, and hopefully they got their first taste of a win, and they're going to move forward and do great things for the city of Houston. Because trust me, if you live in the city of Houston, and a lot of you listening to me do, then you deserve it. You do deserve a winning team. You really do. I mean, you got the Astros. You might as well have the Texans too, right? Okay, let's do this. Let's spend today, in honor of the Texans' win, let's spend today talking about fundamentals. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Fundamentals. What exactly are fundamentals? Well, fundamentals are technically those things that are essentially your base layer of anything that you do. It's the common information that everybody on your team has. Does that make sense? Okay, it goes even deeper when you talk about football, because if you're going to play on a football team, you have to prepare your body, you have to prepare your mind, you have to prepare yourself to be ready to play the game. So to do those things, there are fundamentals that you must do. You have to work out. You have to study playbooks. You have to actually work on your form. If you're a passer, you have to work on throwing the pass. If you're a receiver, you have to work on catching the pass. If you're a running back, you have to focus on getting the ball, not fumbling it, and moving through the offensive line. And hopefully, if you're an offensive lineman, you've been working on the fundamentals of blocking, not tackling, because that would be a hold, right? That would be a hold. Okay, now I just heard a scream in the background. I did. I heard it through my radio headphones, and I heard somebody out there saying, stop talking about football. I'm here for real estate. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. Let's talk about the fundamentals that you need to have as a real estate investor. Are you cool with that? Dude, I am so cool with that. As a matter of fact, that's why I'm here. I'm here to help you understand, first of all, that there is a better way to retirement than what you're doing right now. Yeah, you heard me correctly. There is a better way to achieve retirement than what you're doing right now. And what I would submit to you is that your fundamentals for investing, well, they're flawed. They are flawed. I mean, you're doing everything that your coaches have told you to do, right? I mean, who are these coaches? Okay, well, let's break it all down. Every one of us wants to be successful. Okay, there's a couple of you out there that don't care about success. I get that. But for the most part, everybody wants to achieve success in their life. And part of achieving success is living your life in a manner that you feel is appropriate for your lifestyle. And as part of that living your life component, you are supposed to think about the future. You're supposed to think about those beautiful years in your future, those golden years where you're going to be. Let's see if I can visualize a financial planner's advertising campaign for you. It's two beautiful elderly people that appear to be married that are walking hand in hand. They're wearing the designer clothes, right? And they're walking down the beach, and the waves are slowly rolling in, and they're smiling, and they're hand in hand, and there's some beautiful music playing in the background, and it gives you the impression that those people have got it all dialed in. And what corporate America and your financial planner wants you to believe is that if you do the things that you are told to do with regards to investing, you will achieve that type of lifestyle. But statistically, it doesn't work. You heard me correctly. Statistically, it does not work. Go do your own research, but I'll tell you what the research that I've done tells me. Out of every 100 people to achieve the age of retirement, that would be 65. That's what the government says is the age of retirement. Now, I messed that up. I retired myself 3 years ago. I did at the age of 55. So I did it 5 years early. And had I been a member of Lifestyles Unlimited back in the day, I would have done it a long time ago. I may not have even retired from the United States Army because I would not have had to rely on a pension. We're talking about fundamentals today. As a matter of fact, I'm using some football analogies to make my point. I was really just wishing the Houston Texans a big congratulations. I really think that's a football team that could have won more of the games that they've actually won this year. But I think what they proved over the weekend is that they're starting to get it dialed in. I think Lovie Smith is starting to get his players to fully understand the concept of what he wants them to do when it comes to executing the game. And I think there's some bright times in store for the Houston Texans. Now, let me talk about those Dallas Cowboys for a minute. Now, I realize if you're in Houston and I just said Dallas Cowboys, I might as well have just been cussing over the airwaves, right? I mean, that's exactly how you feel. But I'm not cussing over the airwaves because what I want to do is share with you some information about the Dallas Cowboys and their fundamentals that I think is very important. Now, the Dallas Cowboys played over the weekend, and they played the Super Bowl champions, the reigning Super Bowl champions. And you would think the Super Bowl champions would have their stuff all dialed in, right? Because they're the reigning Super Bowl champions. And you would think that team came back with a big component of their previous players from the previous year, so they should have some good foundation to build off of, right? Okay. Well, it didn't appear that that's what the case was, because the Dallas Cowboys went to the City of Angels and basically spanked the LA Rams. Yeah, they spanked the LA Rams. They beat them like, I don't know, what was the score, like 22-10? So what I took out of that particular game is that I noticed that the Dallas Cowboys have really upped their game when it comes to their defense. Yeah, their defense. They were able to take a Super Bowl champion, an offensive team. That's what the Rams are. They're really an offensive team. Okay, they got Aaron Donald on the defense. I'll give you that, okay? But one guy does not make the defense, although Aaron Donald probably, if he played by himself, he probably could play like 11 players. I think he's that good. But the Dallas Cowboys, they've got some studs on their team too. And they have, in Al's opinion, more studs on their defense than the LA Rams have on their defense. And it showed. It showed. They were able to hold a Super Bowl powerhouse offensive team to just 10 points in their beautiful multi-billion-dollar stadium that they built on the former Hollywood, what was that, Hollywood Park racetrack? I believe that's where that particular stadium is. So if you know anything about Los Angeles, it's kind of like right in the center of LA. Yeah, who cares about that, right? Because we're not talking about stadiums. We're talking about fundamentals. So when it comes to real estate investing, what are the fundamentals that you need to have? What is it you need to have? Now, we talked about those football players, right? They got to have some physical conditioning. They have some mental agility. They have to be able to learn, understand a playbook, that type of thing, right? Okay. It's no different with real estate investing, except for maybe the physical conditioning piece. We're not going to have you become a member of Lifestyles Unlimited and all of a sudden you're going to be met by a coach or a drill sergeant, if you will, that's going to have you do push-ups until like your nose bleeds. Okay, that's not going to happen. We don't go that route. But what we do want you to do is we want you to condition your mind. There's a couple things that you're going to have to address. First of all, you're going to have to address the big monkey in your brain. Yeah, there's a big monkey crawling around in your brain, and that monkey has been taught by your financial planners, by your stockbrokers, by your teachers, by your guidance counselors, even by your parents and other people that have influenced you in your life. They have taught you that the way to financial freedom, we call that retirement at Lifestyles Unlimited, the way to get there is to save. Save your way to retirement. It's really kind of a holdover from the concepts that were developed like in the 1930s after the Depression, when the entire economy fell apart and people were devastated during the Depression. I mean, this is something that happened like, well, almost 100 years ago. It's a period of time that my parents lived through. Yeah, my parents are long gone. I'm 58 years of age right now. There was probably about a 30 to 40 year gap between me and my parents. So my parents did live through the Depression. So growing up, my mom wasn't too aware of what happened in the Depression because she was born in 1931. The Depression had already happened, but the effects of the Depression affected her when she was a small child. My dad, however, well, he was born in 1925. So when the Depression happened, he was like the age of 4. So he grew up as a young child through depressionary times. He saw people standing in food lines. He saw people standing in bread lines. He saw people standing in line to get whatever they could get. Now, fortunately, we are not there in our economy right now, but I'll be honest with you, this is just Al's opinion now. I don't think that the people running our country right now really have a full understanding of how dangerous it is for us right now economically, because if they really understood how the economy worked, we would have gotten ahead of this inflation like a year ago. Not now. We would have already been working on it a year ago. You know, when Janet Yellen said, well, inflation is just transitory right now. And there was all kinds of data to say, no, it's not. And now they're trying to tell us that there is no such thing as a recession going on right now. But the definition of a recession is 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. That's gross domestic product. And we've used that definition for like 100 years. So all of a sudden the administration now doesn't want to use that definition because it doesn't suit the narrative. Okay, enough of the economic talk. Let's get back to the fundamentals. So in your mind, you've been taught to save. You have also been taught that what's going on in the financial markets right now is fully appropriate because you're going to do something called dollar cost averaging, which means you're going to continue to buy stocks as the stocks go down in price. Your financial planner is telling you that you are, what are they telling you? They're telling you that you're buying the stocks on sale, right? And that eventually the stock market is going to bottom out because the stock market does eventually bottom down. It does eventually bottom out. And then it starts to go back up. I mean, if you look at a stock chart going all the way back to the Great Depression, you will see that the stock market has reflected this type of behavior since all the way back then. So the probability that the stock market would fully collapse is pretty small. So I want to give you that comfort. However, what we don't know right now is how long is it going to take for that stock market to get back to where it's supposed to be. If you look at what the stock market is doing today, it is essentially in the same place that it was all the way back in November of 2020. You heard me correctly. It's essentially in the same place it was all the way back in November of 2020. Now, what happened in November of 2020? Well, we were in the middle of a pandemic, right? But if you look at a stock chart, you will see that in November of 2020, the stock market actually signaled that it may be poised for a breakout. Yeah, a breakout. In other words, it'll go up in value. And that's exactly what it did. It went up in value. But here's your problem. All those stocks that you bought were overpriced because now they're only worth what they were worth 2 years ago. When we come back from the break, more on fundamentals.
Got questions? Call Lifestyles Unlimited at 855-497-4335. The Real Estate Investor Radio Show continues next.
A woman came up to me a couple years ago. She goes, you know, Del, this retirement stuff's great and everything, but I got a problem. I go, what's that? She goes, I married my husband for good, bad, ugly, for the rest of our life, better or worse, but not to have him at home with me every day. Get him out of here.
Sound like a problem you'd want? Learn how to retire in 5 years or less. Go to lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com.
Hey, welcome back to the show. You know what I'm going to do right now? I'm going to make every Dallas Cowboy fan terribly upset with me because you know what I'm going to talk about right now? I'm going to talk about the fundamentals of the Philadelphia Eagles. Yeah, you heard me correctly. The Philadelphia Eagles, the team that the Dallas Cowboys will take on this coming weekend. This is going to be a big NFC East showdown. And I will tell you, I remember times when the big NFC showdown was the battle of the 1-7 teams, but that's not what's going to happen next weekend. You're going to have the 5-0 Philadelphia Eagles take on the 4-1 Dallas Cowboys. Now, in the last segment, I was praising the Dallas Cowboys. Now, I'm not a Dallas Cowboys fan. Let me just be very clear there. I respect their team. I respect what they're doing, but I'm actually a Las Vegas Raiders fan. I've been a Raiders fan since I was like 4 years of age, back when they were in Oakland. I was still a Raiders fan when they moved to Los Angeles both times and back to Oakland both times. And now I'm a fan that they're in my hometown of Las Vegas, Nevada, although their record is not necessarily as good as I would hope it to be. So let's go ahead and praise those Philadelphia Eagles. They're 5-0. 5-0. They're currently the only undefeated team in the National Football League. And more importantly, I think the league is even healthier this year because I was just checking all the stats to see if there was any team that has a pure losing record. In other words, they haven't won a single game. And it doesn't exist this year. It does not exist. Every team has won at least one game this year. So I think the NFL is becoming a more competitive environment. But these Philadelphia Eagles, man, they are on fire. They're 5-0, and they're going to take on the Dallas Cowboys. So you're going to have a high-powered offense going against a high-powered defense. So the high-powered Philadelphia Eagles offense is going to take on the high-powered Dallas Cowboys defense. It's going to be an interesting battle. I mean, somebody's going to have to win the game. There's 60 minutes, and somebody's going to have to win, unless, of course, they wind up in a tie. But what's that got to do with real estate? It has everything to do with real estate. See, when you become a real estate investor, we're going to help you understand the fundamentals. Now, I was talking a little bit about that monkey in your brain, right? That monkey in your brain that has been trained to save your way to retirement. In other words, you've been taught that the way to financial freedom is to get a good job, hunker down, save as much money as you can, throw that money into an IRA or a 401k, or maybe in my case, a pension. Okay, and you use that money later in life to live off of, and you pray that you have enough money saved up that you don't run out of money before you die, because that could be a really big problem now, couldn't it? The problem with the path that you're following right now is it makes you a consumer of your own money. You heard me correctly, a consumer of your own money. All of these retirement plans that you're following, they're all designed for you to use that money and consume it. Don't invest it, consume it. Lifestyles Unlimited is going to teach you a completely different way. We're going to teach you how to develop something called passive streams of income. What's that? Passive streams of income? That sounds like fantasy football. Well, it does sound like fantasy football, doesn't it? But it's really not fantasy football. It's actually a legitimate investing strategy. So let me explain this strategy to you, because nobody, trust me, nobody in your world probably knows about what I'm about ready to share with you. So you ready? Okay. When you buy assets and you put those assets in your personal portfolio, now you think you have assets in a personal portfolio, which what you have is you have fractional shares of stocks through your mutual fund or whatever else, right? But that all sits in your portfolio. Well, real estate can also sit in your portfolio, and I would suggest that you should have more, if not all, of your assets be real estate, and not just any kind of real estate, income producing real estate. Did you know that there are two kinds of real estate? There's the kind of real estate that produces income and the kind that does not. You heard me correctly. And it isn't specifically tied to a particular asset class within real estate. What am I getting at? Okay, let's talk about land. Yeah, land. Land. Do you know that you can buy and own land? Well, of course you know you can buy and own land. And there are many people in Texas that think that part of their retirement strategy, as they continue to get older, maybe get closer to my age, and the kids are gone, so maybe now they have more disposable income, and that retirement plan they're following, it's building up. They keep putting more and more money in there every time they look at their, well, maybe not lately because the stock market hasn't been doing great, but let's say maybe a year ago you were looking at your indexes, or you were looking at your whatever you use to tell you how much money you have in your retirement account. Okay, that's probably the best way for me to put it. You've looked at that and you've thought, well, it's actually pretty healthy. And some of you are even thinking it's actually pretty healthy in spite of what the market's doing, because you're dollar cost averaging right now and you feel really good. So why not buy some land? Well, here's why you should not buy some land. Land just sits there. It just sits there. It does nothing. It just sits there. The wind blows across it. It just sits there. Maybe the rain falls on it, and still the land, it just sits there. It does nothing. It doesn't produce income for you. You would have to do something to that land to cause it to create an income stream for you. Now, there's actually a couple ways you could do it, and let me just highlight these things. One way you could do it is you could turn around and you could lease that land to somebody who's going to cultivate the land. In other words, you accept cash payments on a monthly basis or quarterly basis, whatever you arrange, in exchange for the person that you lease the land to having full rights to access and cultivate the land. If you did something like that, you would actually create a passive stream of income. You totally would, because now what you've done is you've taken an asset that traditionally doesn't pay you anything, and you have found a way to create an income stream. You lease the land out to somebody who wants to cultivate. They pay you an amount on whatever schedule you guys arrange, and now you're achieving income. But here's part of the problem. Land leases, well, they're not as effective as, let's say, an apartment lease. And here's why. Not everybody requires the use of land. Yeah, you heard me correctly. Not everybody requires the use of land. But everybody requires the use of a living space. Yeah, a place to live. Now, whether you rent it or you buy it is immaterial. Everybody demands that. Everybody except people that choose to be homeless. Okay? I'm serious about that. I'm not picking on homeless people. Trust me, there are two types of homeless people. The ones that choose to be that way and the ones that have no choice. There's really no in between. So your land lease is only as good as the particular land. If you happen to own rocky land in the middle of the Mojave Desert, chances are people are not going to go out of their way to spend a bunch of money to give it to you so that they can mine rocks or whatever they're doing out there. Okay, does that make sense? So land, if you're going to be involved with land speculation or land leases or things like that, make sure your fundamentals are correct. Make sure you know exactly what you're doing before you get into that. That is the most important thing. And that's really the fundamentals that I'm getting at on today's show. The fundamentals that you need to have are the fundamentals that are flowing through your brain. Does that make sense? I know it makes sense to you. Now, Lifestyles Unlimited is designed specifically to teach you all of those fundamentals. Every single one of those fundamentals that you need, because it's with those fundamentals that you actually have access to what we call the map. You heard me correctly, the map. What the map does for you is it sends you signals as to what paths are available for you to go down so that you can arrive at your destination. So at the break, I was talking with Sergio. Now, Sergio is our intern. He's helping out Rick with running all the sound and studio stuff. And I said, hey, Sergio, who's your favorite football team? And he said, Spain. And I said, wait a minute. No. You don't understand, Sergio. Who's your favorite football team? And he said, Spain. And I realized that what we're having is a breakdown in communication. See, when I'm saying football, I'm actually referring to the National Football League, American football. Sergio, on the other hand, he doesn't care for American football as much as he cares for football. In other words, soccer. So when I asked him, hey, who's your favorite football team? He reverted to soccer because that's what he understands football to be. And he said it was Spain. So now Rick, not to be left out of the conversation, he's like, yeah, but they're not very good, Sergio. If you want a good football team, you need to look to Brazil. And I said, really? Is Brazil that good? And Rick's like, oh, yeah, dude, they're the best. And I go, well, what do they call those guys? And he goes, the Brazil football team. And I said, well, that's kind of lame. Don't they have like this really cool name? And he rattled off this name that I can't repeat. Not that it's nasty or anything. It's just too complex. I don't understand the words, so I'm not going to try and repeat it. And in fairness to Brazil's football team, they're probably very happy that I don't butcher their nickname for their team. But this takes me back to fundamentals. It totally does, because even Sergio and Rick understand that you have to have fundamentals when it comes to the world of sports. Now, those guys like soccer. I'm not a big soccer fan. I appreciate the sport, but I'm not a big soccer fan. But both of those guys would tell you that their teams execute really sound fundamentals. Rick would say Brazil's fundamentals are better because they have a better record. That's exactly what we want for you when it comes to real estate investing. We want you to have a great record. Do you recall yesterday's show? I know you recall yesterday's show because you listen to everything that I do, hopefully. Anyway, in yesterday's show, do you remember that I was talking about my friend Bob, who's a Lifestyles Unlimited member, and I actually interviewed Bob 2 days ago? Yeah, 2 days ago. So Bob was on the show, and then I continued talking about Bob yesterday, and I brought up this point that Bob, in his third investment, he actually lost money. And if you recall correctly, I said, look, the number one rule in investing, especially real estate investing, is to never lose money. You do everything in your power to prevent that from happening. Now, Bob was a passive investor in a real estate deal, and that deal lost a little bit of money. That loss was well overshadowed by the incredible gains that he received in the other three investments that he was in. So it really didn't impact him that much, other than the fact he actually had a fourth investment running that didn't produce the type of returns that Bob wanted. That was a huge learning event for Bob. He realized that there were some fundamental mistakes that he made when he selected that deal. And as a result of that, he fine-tuned his investing strategy, and he never made that mistake again. He never did. As a matter of fact, every other investment that Bob sent me, he's got like 35 different apartment buildings that he's invested in. I think about 16 of them have actually, or wait a minute, it's not 16. I think a dozen of them have actually been sold off. So he's made great returns on those particular assets, but he never repeated that mistake again. That's part of learning from fundamentals. That's the beautiful thing of Lifestyles Unlimited. When you become a member, we're going to teach you the fundamentals of real estate investing. We're not going to give you a bunch of theory. We're not going to give you a bunch of hyperbole. This is not a, hey, sign up for the University of Lifestyles Unlimited and spend 4 years and we're going to restructure your brain and how you think. Well, we are going to restructure your brain and how you think, but in a good way, not in what Al's opinion education is doing to people right now. Yeah, I just don't think education is really focused on the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic. I really don't, especially all the stuff I've been seeing in the news. But that's not why I'm here, and that's not what we're going to talk about. So the fundamentals. The fundamentals actually begin with education. It absolutely begins with education. All of these football teams, whether you identify them as American football or soccer teams, they all rely on education. Now, when a player comes to that team, that player comes with whatever belief system they have and whatever they've been taught in the past, which may or may not work with regards to that particular team. So the coach's job is to educate those players on the goals and objectives of the team and to educate them on the playbook and how they're going to achieve a winning season. Yeah, and trust me, the Philadelphia Eagles are doing that right now. The Dallas Cowboys are doing that right now. Both of them are going to meet this weekend, and there can only be one. Yeah, you remember that movie, right? There can only be one. Okay, send me an email at askal@luinc.com if you remember the name of the movie. Yeah, because to be honest with you, I just want to get some fun emails from you guys. I do. Some of the emails I get from you guys are fun. Some of them are well, they're in depth. Like I just got an email from somebody. They want to talk about funding. So that can be an easy question to answer, or that could be a hard question to answer depending on the question. But at the end of the day, it's somebody seeking information, and that's part of my role here at Lifestyles Unlimited is to provide you information. The role of Lifestyles Unlimited as an organization is twofold. It's to provide you real estate investor education. In other words, we're going to teach you how to invest correctly. We're going to teach you to invest in the right asset classes that produce not only passive income, but also give you an opportunity to increase the value of those properties. And properties increase in value 4 different ways. There's actually a 5th way if we're talking about multifamily, which is any collection of 5 or more units on a particular property. Does that make sense? So as a result of that, you get the information you need. You get the baseline that's going to carry you forward. Now, from there, the other thing that Lifestyles Unlimited will provide you, if you decide you want it, is mentoring. Mentoring is very important. Whether you choose to go with dedicated mentoring like we provide at Lifestyles Unlimited, in other words, we have members that have agreed to mentor other members, and as a result of that, it's a controlled process and it's very, very effective. It is very effective. Other members choose to go out and solicit their own mentors. Whatever works for you is what makes sense for you. Does that make sense to you? I know it makes sense to me, even though I'm talking in riddles right now, right? So between the education and the mentoring, you get the information that you need to be successful, and then you get the guidance of somebody who's been there, done that, got all the T-shirts, helping you get through the process. It's kind of like, well, do you remember riding a bicycle and taking the training wheels off for the first time? Remember you wanted to have mom or dad holding on to the back of that seat to make sure you didn't fall over because you knew you were going to fall over? Well, that's kind of what the mentor does. The mentor comes in and holds that bicycle seat and makes sure that you don't tip over, and then they slowly start releasing their grip on that seat as they understand you are getting the fundamentals down. Yes, and that's how you eventually wind up riding a bike without training wheels, is you have to have some help from somebody that cares about you, and your mentor cares about you. Now, in addition to all of that, you need something called a network. You absolutely need a network. You need a network of people. You need a network of people to be a part of your team. Now, some of these people are going to be professionals, people like realtors, mortgage brokers, attorneys, CPAs, and there's a bunch more I can go into. I'm just giving you the big 4 there. There are also people that you're going to need to have in your team that are a part of what we call the trades. Maybe it's a general contractor that brings all the trades with him. Or maybe you're going to choose to be your own general contractor and you're going to bring in each of the trades because you're going to run the project yourself. However you choose to do it is how you choose to do it. So you might need things like plumbers, electricians. You might need foundation people. You might need glaziers. Yeah, I love that word, glaziers. People that put in windows for you. You may need people that understand roofs. You may need to have a relationship with an appliance company. All of these different elements are important to your team. All of these different people are important to your team. Now, there's one other element of your team that we haven't talked about, but I'm going to get into it right now. And this has to do with the people that are on your left and your right flank. Yeah, these would be your fellow Lifestyles Unlimited members. And you go to meetup events, you go to case studies, you go to all these events that Lifestyles Unlimited either provides or causes to happen, and you start meeting your fellow members. And what this does for you is it gives you relationships that you can draw on. You can meet people that have actually cashed in their 401k who can give you advice on what's the best way to do it. A guy by the name of Mike I was talking to last Sunday at a meetup event, he showed me exactly how he cashed in his 401k. And he was showing me that by doing it the way he did it, he was able to eliminate the capital gains on the first $80,000, and then the rest of the money was only taxed at a 15% rate. Now, I'll be the first one to tell you, I don't fully understand all of that 401k stuff because I never cashed one in. I never was the beneficiary of a 401k. But Mike has, and Mike has a beautiful mind, and Mike is willing to share with you the lessons learned because he wants your fundamentals to be as solid as his are. Well, we're at the end of the show, and I'll tell you what, it's time for you to focus on the fundamentals. Go to lifestylesunlimited.com and get signed up for one of our free workshops.
The information and opinions you hear on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show are those of the hosts, guests, and callers. The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.